what this is going to be all about and who's the speaker, I would want you to be aware of a few things about the way Zoom app works that we are using right now. Just understand that none of us can see all of you as participants. You will only have the host or the panelist being seen to all of you. There is a chat box at the bottom of your screen, and there is also a Q&A option. Both these options are meant for different purposes, and you need to know that to have a smooth session. Anything to do with technical issues, or if you're not able to hear us, or you need some guidance with regards to using the app or having a smooth session, please put it to us on the chat box. If you have questions for the panelists, if you have questions for the speaker, Mrs. Sneha Tapadia, please put them into the Q&A section. So we are going to have about half an hour of a discussion or a talk, followed by a few question answers that will be addressed for all of you, which would happen through the Q&A section. I hope that makes it very clear on what needs to be used when. As we move ahead, I'm now here to introduce you to the speaker of the session, Lockdown Champions. So, Mrs. Sneha Tapadia is currently the CEO of Jumpstart Preschool Daycare and Activity Center. An MBA Finance postgraduate, Sneha ma'am has started Jumpstart Preschool as her other baby. She calls it in this fashion, like her second baby, in 2009. It has been a wonderful and diverse journey so far with her. After doing graduation in biotechnology and post graduation in management, Sneha ma'am has done her diploma in early childhood education, and her learning has been very hands on in the last 8 years. She actually aspired to be a teacher right from her childhood, and life has given her this opportunity to actually teach, and not only teach one or two or few children, but actually to have opportunities where she can teach and impact the life of so many children around. In India, preschool education and daycares are actually very, very unorganized, with a gap between the way the knowledge is to be shared and how it is to be imparted to children. Mrs. Sneha Tapadia has learned to fill this gap by adapting the right facilitators, teaching methodologies, proper infrastructure, and modern technology to prepare a learning environment for children. She truly believes that quality education is the key to better future. And the way she says it is absolutely essential to focus on healthy parent partnership, customizing education to perceive the uniqueness of every child, uplifting the skills of the educators and teachers at large, and making every day interesting and exciting. In this view of partnering with parents, we are coming up with this webinar session today where Sneha ma'am is about to share her knowledge about how we can use this opportunity of lockdown to have engaging experiences with our children and actually become lockdown champions. So with this, I would like to have Sneha ma'am take over the session and guide us, all of us, with her wonderful experience. Sneha ma'am, could you please take over the session?
Thank you so much, Heta. Good evening, parents. Welcome to our first ever online webinar. I want to start today's webinar by appreciating each one of you for multitasking, for taking different roles during this lockdown. Not are you working for your office from home, but you're also doing your household chores and you're managing your children full time, which otherwise you would have had learning centers or daycares to take care of your children, and you would have had a house help to take care of your household chores. So all of you doing such an incredible work, multitasking. I really, really want to congratulate each one of you for doing that. We are on the 25th day of lockdown, and you are just awesome, is what I would want to say. I would also want to express my heartfelt gratitude to all our parent partners for being such robust and strong partners during such difficult times. It is a testing time. It is a testing time for us, for our children, for our nation, and for the entire world. We all are, through our actions, thoughts, and gestures, trying to infect the world with so much of positivity. Let us take today a few seconds to reinforce this positive thought in our minds so that we become the perfect role models for our children. I want all of you to close your eyes for a few seconds, join your hands, and let's pray. Let's pray that this world comes back to normalcy. It comes back to becoming as beautiful it was as ever. Let us infect our minds with positive thoughts. Let us lift the spirits of everybody around us and let us pray for the well-being of each and every one of us. Thank you so much. Let us now close our eyes for our Infini prayer.
Feeling thy presence, feeling thy grace, feeling thy radiance. You are my source of faith and strength. You are my path and destination, and I'm always connected to you. Nothing of me and everything of you. Lead me higher, lead me deeper, lead me beyond, lead me to you.
Sitting in the four walls of a confined and comfortable homes, we cannot even predict the situation which is outside. We had joined hands with this NGO called as SAD, and we happened to go to a lot of slums. The situation is very grave outside. There are these daily wage workers who stay in shanties, which are made up of cloth or tin sheets. They don't even know where the next meal will come from. India has a population of 300 million who are below poverty line. And there are 100 million Indians who are just above the poverty line. This lockdown might push these 100 million Indians into the 300 million who are below the poverty line. Social distancing is a joke for these daily wage workers. There are 5-6 family members staying in such small huts and shanties, and there are huts and shanties which are very close to each other, and 5-6 huts share one toilet. They are oblivion to what is happening outside in the world. All they are worried about is where would their next meal come from. When you go and meet these people is when you realize how lucky you are, how grateful you are to be in the comforts of your own homes, how lucky our children are that they still get these opportunities to learn, grow, and develop. We really should be grateful for so many things, because when we are grateful to whatever is happening, disturbance just eludes away. My teacher had taught me once that whenever a situation arises, there are only 4 outcomes to those situations. You either get what you had expected for, you either get more than what you had expected for, you will get less than what you had expected for, or you will get exactly the opposite. For many of us, we have exactly got the opposite of what we had expected for. And it is during these times when we get exactly opposite of what we had expected for and less than what we had expected for is when our true personalities are reflected. These are the times which tell us how comfortable are we with change. These are the times which tell us how easily can we mold and adapt to changes. The only solution that we have right now in this situation is accept. Obviously, all of us are accepting the situation and staying in the 4 walls of our comfortable homes. But it is very important to accept the situation with happiness and mindfulness. And we need to do this for our children. Our children are observing every gesture, every action of ours. Children learn more by seeing than actually doing it. Or children learn more by seeing rather than you telling them something. And now is the time when you are spending 24 hours straight with your children, and children are observing every gesture and action of yours. And that is the reason it becomes all the more important for us to be the perfect role models for our children. What is. What is not, is not. Whatever is going to happen is going to happen. All what we can do is become aware, become more mindful, and happily accept the situation. I'm so sure the discussions around our homes are about the virus and how it is spreading and how the number of deaths are increasing. We happen to call our family members, talk to them, and our discussions are always centered about the virus for most of us. Another thing is all of us are together, caught in the four walls of house, which means it is big boss house, and there are chances that we would have a lot of difference of opinion. Our children are also observing how are we reacting and responding to such difference of opinion. For a lot of mothers, and I'm so sure for fathers, you're multitasking, you're taking up so many roles, which can actually exhaust you. And the frustration comes from the family members and children. Children again are observing as to how are you coping with this change. Uh, I just had a discussion with my 7-year-old daughter, Arna. I was telling her what this virus is all about, how it spreads, what are the precautions that we need to take, what is a pandemic, and why are we sitting inside the house, and why you are not going to a school. And I have told her to use a mask and wash her hands, and she regularly does that. She washes her hands for 20 seconds, singing the happy birthday song twice. And she's been doing it very regularly. The other day, as usual, after every 2-3 hours, she goes to the wash basin, washes her hands, singing the happy birthday song. And the other day, after she washed her hands, she happened to take the napkin. But the napkin fell off from her hand and fell to the floor. I immediately bent down, lifted the napkin, and gave it to her. Her immediate reaction was, "No, Mama, I cannot use this napkin. COVID-19." For a minute, I thought, wow, she's actually understood the importance of cleanliness and hygiene. But then later, I thought, I cannot even predict the intensity with which the communication is reaching to our children, and how would they exhibit this communication. And therefore, it becomes all the more important for us to have meaningful discussions with our children, because you really cannot predict the intensity of your talk, action, and gestures, and how their minds are being shaped during this time when you are with them 24 by 7, and you're the only people whom they have to observe. The purpose of today's webinar is to increase our capacity and capability of being a parent. Capability is, can we be better at whatever we are doing? And capacity is, can we do this more often? So if we have bettered our skills, can we perform it more number of times? Capability is basically the quality of a parenting style, and capacity is the quantity, the quantitative time that you're spending with your children. And the intent of today's webinar is to improve both the capacity and capability of us being champion parents. So there are these 7 things that I would recommend all the parents who are listening today to do every single day. Most of us would be doing few things, but on and off. What I want all of you to do is practice this religiously every single day. It would just take 1.5 hours, but it would include your growth and your child's growth as well. So let's get to the 7 things that we need to do. The first thing, during these times, we really need to preserve our child's mental health, which means we have to ensure that our children are thinking the right thoughts, and so are we. We need to improve the quality of our thoughts and reduce the quantity of our thoughts. I repeat, we need to improve the quality of our thoughts and reduce the quantity of thoughts, which means We have to feed our mind with the right positive thoughts. How do we do that? We do that by being in the present, in the moment, there, right now. Few things can actually help us to reduce anxiety and focus concentration and improve the quality of our thoughts. What we need to do is practice focused breathing. And children as young as 2 years can actually do that. You need to teach them focused breathing through counts. 4, 7, 8 is the number that you need to remember. 4 counts is when you breathe in, 7 counts you hold, and 8 counts you exhale. You practice it only 3 or 4 times in a day, you would be in the present moment and your anxiety levels will go down, which eventually will result in children's anxiety level going down, because children can actually sense the vibration of the place. You can sing prayer with the child. You can chant Om as well. And the most important thing that you can do to preserve the mental health of children is to express gratitude. Express gratitude every single day to a person, to a situation, or to an experience. Because when gratitude is there in your life, trust me, disturbance just eludes away. It never ever touches you. So we need to teach our children that once in a day, just be grateful for whatever we have. And you can change things, experiences, and people every single day. That is how we can preserve the mental health of our children. The next thing that we need to focus on is the physical health of our children. It is very important that along with mental health, the physical health is intact, which means their immunity is really strong. Focus on eating the right food and the right nutritious food. Exercise with them. Take out some time, at least half hour every single day. You can exercise uniquely. I had this one parent, who exercises every single day, taking her child on her shoulders and doing squats. Now, what happens when you involve children in exercise is they observe you doing it, and there are higher chances that they will end up repeating it even after the lockdown is over. We have 15 more days, hopefully, for the lockdown to get over. Let us give that half hour of physical fitness to ourselves and our children. You can dance together, you can do yoga together, you can do Surya Namaskar together. The best form of exercise would be to take out your skipping ropes and skip together. Now is the time to teach your children how to use skipping ropes. So don't forget, exercise every single day and take care of your physical health. The third thing that we need to do as parents is to develop the right attitudinal skill sets in children, because now is the time when we can shape their behavior, because we are spending enough amount of time with them. It is very important that we set routines and schedules for our children. And the most important thing that we need to do is make them feel matured, make them feel responsible for a task at home. You can involve them in household chores, or you can give them one responsibility and make them feel that this responsibility is so important and you are the person who is in charge for it. Children always work with two kinds of motivation. There is external motivation, which is called as extrinsic motivation, and there is internal motivation, which comes from inside. For preschoolers, extrinsic motivation works wonders. Extrinsic motivation is when you give them stars, you clap for them, you applaud them, you appreciate them with external words. Intrinsic motivation is your inner voice, which comes from inside. And this intrinsic motivation can be developed in children when you make them responsible for a particular task. And when children achieve this task is when they are ready to take up newer responsibilities, in the process improving their intrinsic motivation. Now you can give them simple tasks. For slightly elder children, you can tell them, you are the person who's responsible to ensure that we save power. And you will ensure that the lights, fans are closed when they are not in use. For younger children, you can tell them, oh, you can help me with dusting. And children love taking up household chores. You can take their help in putting up plates on the dining table, or take your help in little things like helping you in kitchen. The moment you tell them the importance of tasks and you tell them that you are the concerned person, you are the person who will help the entire family if you complete this task. There's a certain sense of responsibility and maturedness and intrinsic motivation which is developed in children. And now is the right time to do that. The fourth important thing that you need to do with children is actually connect with them. Now, connecting with children can happen actively and it can happen passively. Active connection with children would be through physical touch, through hugs, through kisses, through pat on the back, telling them, wow, you're amazing, you're doing a superb work. Or active connection could be having a meaningful conversation with them without obviously interference of technology, where you just sit across the child. This can work well with elder children, and you discuss a thing with them. You talk about your emotions, how you are feeling. You can ask them about how they are feeling and discuss something for 5-6 minutes, and you're done. This will help you reveal a lot about their personality and how they are feeling. And the most important thing is they will feel safe and secured. Now, passive connection would be where you are not taking an active role, where you're just sitting beside the child and the child is engaged in self-play. Now, what happens is when you're just sitting beside the child and you're not actively involved, preschoolers especially engage in a lot of self-talk. You must have observed that when children have taken a toy, they're just having a conversation with themselves aloud. Preschoolers do it very often. Adults don't do it aloud. They're just talking with themselves. We all do that. Now, what we can do is to develop a connection with children is involve passively, which means observe your child carefully when the child is engaged in self-play. This is what our teachers do all the time. The best time for teachers to evaluate the children is during free play. That is the time when teachers usually see, is the child preferring the same toy again and again? Is the child interacting with the other children? What is the child thinking? Because when the child talks aloud, you actually understand what is going in the child's mind. You can observe the child based on his preferences, his likes and dislikes. So use your time both actively and passively to connect with children. This was the fourth task that you have to do every single day. The fifth important thing that we can do is do some activity together as a family. You can do simple things like you can play board games like chess, ludo, snakes and ladders, simple board games. You can play carom or indoor sports. You can play with playing cards, Uno. You can watch a movie together. You can read a book together. When all the family members are involved together in a task, there is a certain sense of belongingness which comes in the child and which results in a blissful state of mind. When you know you are part of a community, when you know you're part of this group, and these are my people, and we're doing it together, and we're trying to achieve one goal, it gives a certain sense of happiness in a child's mind. And that is why everybody should take out those 10-15 minutes where the grandparents, the parents, children, everybody are involved in one family activity together. The sixth thing that you can do is to work on the social and emotional health of children. Children are just observing you, maybe the grandparents, every single day. They're not able to connect with their friends or the extended family members. And this is very important to preserve the emotional and social health of children. So what you can do is use a lot of apps, and obviously we have to take technology to our rescue and help children connect with their friends or extended family members through apps like maybe House Party or through a Hangout app or through Google Duo. You can use all types of video conferencing platforms, but help child connect with friends. I have a friend who's 5-year-old found a very unique way of connecting with his friends. So what they do is they do a Zoom call every single day and they play hide and seek over a Zoom call. Isn't that brilliant? I was just observing how they do that. So what they do is the child takes the laptop in one room and the other child can see the entire room from the screen. And this child then asks the other child to take the den, hits behind the sofa or under the table, and this child is calling out, "Are you behind the sofa? Are you under the table? Are you behind that lampshade?" This is how children innovate, because developing that social connection is the need of the hour, and you have to use technology for your rescue and allow the child to connect with friends and extended family members. Last but not the least, our seventh step, which we should do every single day, is reinvent ourselves. We need to find a purpose for this lockdown. We need to set a goal for ourselves. Now is the time to, you know, do whatever we couldn't do before the lockdown. If some of you like dancing, now is the time to learn a different dance style by taking an online class. Somebody wants to play a musical instrument, now is the time to take out your guitar and start playing it. Somebody wants to learn a game, now is the time to do that. Somebody likes cooking but doesn't get opportunity to cook, now is the time to do that. Because once you start doing it, our children will also find purpose. We can set a goal for our children, saying, you know what, you've got 15 days before the lockdown gets over. You know what, we are going to make 10 different craft items. Or you can tell them, you know, we are going to use skipping rope and you're going to skip 50 times every single day. We need to find one goal or purpose for a lockdown, because that will make all our actions more mindful, resulting towards happiness. So we really need to find a purpose, and you need to find your purpose for this lockdown. I know this is a testing time for all of us. For few of us, our jobs are at stake. For few of us, there are salary deductions. Few of us are entrepreneurs, and the rents are on, the interests are on, the salaries are on with no income. I totally understand it is a testing time for all of us. But how I look at it is, this is a dark tunnel, a very, very dark tunnel. But I know at the end of the tunnel, there is light. There definitely is light. We don't know when we'll see that light. After a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, we don't know that. All we can do right now is mold ourselves, adapt ourselves, and evolve in this darkness. We need to find tools to live in this darkness. Because only people who will change, mold, and adapt can sustain in this darkness. Eventually, our life is about the story we tell about our life to ourselves. Like children do self talk, we also do a lot of self talk, and we subconsciously see our life through those self talks and the stories that we keep on telling to ourselves about our life. So, this is the lockdown story that I would want to tell about my life to myself. The year 2020 started with a bang, with a lot of aspirations, lot of goals. And then in the month of March came this pandemic. This pandemic was like a mirror to me. It was like a reflection to me. It helped me understand what kind of a personality I am. How do I adapt to change? How do I cope up with change? How do I respond or react to differences? It helped me analyze what kind of a personality I am. Preschool is all about the physical touch. Preschool is about children being in front of you and the eye contact that you develop with preschoolers. And all of a sudden, the physical touch is gone, the eye contact is gone, and the children are away from you. How does a preschool perform or function when your children are not with you, when they are not around you, when they're not cuddling you, when they're not making an eye contact, when they're not asking you questions? And for 2 days, it kept me intrigued. I kept thinking, what could possibly be the way ahead? Our parents, which you've been robust, strong partners, doubling up as educators also, how would they continue teaching their children with so many other things to work on? We shut down all the Jumpstart centers on 14th of March. On 16th of March, we decided, let's give one meaningful activity for our parents, which they can do with the child. So we had this book, Play on the Go, and we were sending one video every single day for the parents so that they could meaningfully engage the child with that video. Obviously, the lockdown extended, and then we had to find further avenues. And we were one of the few preschools who decided that let's have a summer camp online. I know there won't be physical touch, there'll be a lot of change, and it's very difficult for the teachers also to come out of that change and to actually connect with children. But they did a brilliant job. We had a summer camp start on 2nd of April, which continued till 15th of April. And then we started with lockdown 2.0. Now what? What do parents do with 15 more days with children? How do we keep them engaged? And we came with our webinar series just so that our parents could double up and become more upskilled with their roles as parents and educators with children. We soon also would be starting our online classes again from the 20th of April, the schedule of which would be discussed with you. Everything changed within a month's time, and it helped me reflect my personality. I realized what kind of a person I am. This is the story that I would want to tell about lockdown to myself. What is going to be your story? Are you going to be lockdown disabled, or are you going to be a lockdown champion? I want all the parents to evolve as lockdown champions, finding their way out. And there is a way. Thank you so much. We can now have a question answer round.
Thank you so much, Sneha ma'am, for a wonderful insight in this situation for all of us as a group and as a community of parents and teachers working for children. We do have a few questions popping up. To the rest of the participants, just remember you need to type your question on the Q&A button and it will be addressed soon. So Sneha ma'am, to start with, we have Mrs. Priyanka Dhume, who is asking the question about how do we inculcate a hobby. I believe she means how do we inculcate a hobby within children.
Okay. So with children, trial and error always works. You need to give a lot of opportunities to children because you cannot really predict what their likes and dislikes are at this age, especially preschoolers. So introduce them to everything possible. But the only key to do that is keep perseverance, because children come out of that interest very fast. But what you need to do is keep it consistent. So for example, if you love playing a musical instrument, you can make the child sit next to you when you are playing the musical instrument. The child might just show interest in exploring with the musical instrument. And once the child starts doing that, perseverance is the key. You need to do it persistently for the child to continue doing it. And that's how we can help child develop a hobby.
Right. Thank you for that. We have Mrs. Preeti Bhadranavar, who is saying, can you please repeat the 7 points in short, like a quick recap?
Okay, I'll quickly recap it for you. The first thing that we need to take care of is our mental health. By practicing focused breathing, by doing prayers, by chanting Om, something which will make us stay in the present. The next thing that we need to take care of our physical health by exercising and involving children in exercises. The third thing that we can do is connect with the child, either actively or passively, but find some ways to connect with children. What the next thing that we can do is make them responsible for something, because now is the time to develop the right attitudinal skill sets in them. So make them responsible for a task at home. The fifth thing is where the entire family comes together and you do something together as a family. The sixth thing is work on the social and emotional development of the child and allow the child to interact with friends and with extended family members using technology, because we have nothing else to use as of now. And the last point is you really need to find a purpose during this lockdown, have a schedule for your children, and find ways of reinventing yourself. So these are the 7 points that you need to do every single day to evolve as lockdown champions.
Right. Next, we have Mrs. Mansi Rajurkar. She says, because of this lockdown, children are losing interest in the activities as they are getting bored of the same things over and over again. That's the reason why the screen time has increased. So how can we change this for the children?
Okay, that's a brilliant question. Obviously, there is little control that we can have over technology and screen time, because the online classes would be on screen, socializing would be on screen. But what at the same time you can do is you can pursue your hobby. If you are doing it, there are higher chances of the child also picking onto it. If you keep on instructing the child saying, now it's time to draw, now it's time to exercise, now it's time to breathe, the child is just going to listen. And children learn more by observing, seeing you, and then they end up absorbing into their personalities. Observe and absorb is how children function. So it is very important that you engage in some meaningful activities for them to be engaged. And at times it is okay for them not to do anything. Absolutely. And allow them to get bored. You don't have to be behind them to do something continuously. Otherwise, they will move away from that. So you do it, children will do it. Perseverant, there are higher chances children will be perseverant. And at times it is okay for them to be by themselves.
Right. In fact, Mrs. Shilpa Jain had the same question. I believe that is now answered. Next, we have Mrs. Mansi Ravetkar. She says, how can you not get overwhelmed with house and office work and take time out for kids?
That's a brilliant thing. The only solution to this is acceptance, because acceptance will allow you to not get overwhelmed with this. When you know that I have to do it and there is no way out, I might as well do it with my heart, mind, soul, everything into it, happily and mindfully. You won't get overwhelmed with the situation. You have to accept that, I have to do the household chores, and I have to be with my child, and I have to work for office as well. If you start comparing it with your other family member, for example, if you start comparing it with your husband, with your in-laws, that what, they are enjoying everything possible and it's only me who is doing it, there are chances that you will get overwhelmed and you would not enjoy what you're doing. The idea is be in the moment, find time for your mental health, mental peace. So deep breathing, prayer, chanting Om will reduce your anxiety. In fact, exercising every day will also release happy hormones, and accept the situation the way it is. That is the only way out.
Right. The next question we have, the name is Anonymous. It says, I have two small kids. How to engage them in activity when I give them both want the same thing and they start fighting for the same?
In fact, that's a wonderful situation that they have a sibling to play with at home, and you don't have to be continuously with the child involving them. Children obviously are going to learn through negotiations. So the best thing is not to get involved into their fights and tell them it is up to you. You have to find a way out. And they definitely will find a way out. It is only when the fights become violent is when you need to interfere in the situation and ask them to take turns. Children never love sharing. You cannot ask them to share, because if they're not done playing with a particular thing, how would they share? They won't share. So what you need to tell them is, this time you are playing first, you're taking your turn first. Once you're done, give it to your younger brother. The next time the younger brother plays first, and you tell them, take your time. After you're done, give it to your elder brother. So that is how you can do it. But as far as possible, don't get involved into their fights. Let them find a solution by themselves.
Right. Next, we have Chaitali. Her question is, how can we engage our children in innovative activities? Please give some examples, something different than drawing or craft or stories, as they are already bored of it.
In fact, you know what? Children never get bored with repetition, because that's how they learn. Repetition is the only way ahead for children's learning. It is how you do it which can bore them. So if you are telling me the children are getting bored by stories, it is very difficult to digest. Probably it is not the right way by which you are telling them a story. The way of narration is so boring, the child doesn't want to sit at one place. Or the art and craft activities are where the parents constantly telling the child what to do, what not to do, and that's why the child is not interested in it anymore. You have to understand by observing what kind of child what kind of a learner your child is. For example, if you make a bodily kinesthetic child sit at one place and do art and craft, the child is definitely going to get bored. So if your child is one who likes moving around the place, who jumps from sofa, who is all around the place, don't make the child sit at one place and do art and craft. In fact, allow the child to play physically. If you have a child who is more of a musically inclined child, do one activity in the day which is all about music. You will understand what kind of a learner your child is by passively being around the child when the child is involved in the activity. You'll understand immediately what your child's liking is. You really don't need to innovate every single time. All you need to do is find a different way of doing the same thing. So storytelling you've done through a storybook, next time you can do the story by using puppets. In fact, in school, sometimes our children love teacher narrating the same story again. So the moment the teacher says which story, the child will say, I want to listen to that story again. The moment the teacher has circle time or rhyme time, they want to listen to the same rhyme. So repetition never bores the children, I'm telling you. What bores the children is the process. So you probably need to upskill yourself with the way you are engaging them. And precisely for that reason, we have the next 6 webinars on the topics which will help you become better at whatever you're doing. So we have topics related to nutrition will help you better your cooking style with minimalistic items required. Or we will have a topic on being how do you take care of your physical fitness, how do you take care of your mental fitness. We would have topics, we will have a storyteller who tell you what all tools you can use to tell a story to your child. So we have the further webinars precisely on developing and upscaling your parenting skills. I hope I've answered your question.
Thank you, ma'am. There are some parents who are raising their hands. I would recommend instead of raising, please type your questions in the Q&A box. The next question comes from Mrs. Manjari Gaikwad. She says, sometimes my child becomes angry as to when will the lockdown end. I tell her a few more days, but I think it's not convincing her. Is there any other positive answer?
What I would say is somebody in the house is getting very anxious about the lockdown. The child is listening to that adult saying, "Pata nahi ye lockdown kab khatam hoga, mahit nahi kadi sampnar, kadi ami bahir janar." Because children learn only by observing. Somebody in the house is getting really anxious about the lockdown, and that's why it is passing on to the child. The other reason possibly could be the child doesn't have enough to do, or adults are not involved with the child for the required amount of time. Everybody in the house should enjoy being in the lockdown. That's why I started the session saying that you need to accept the situation mindfully and with a lot of happiness. Because if everybody is doing that, there are less chances that the child will end up telling you, I don't know when the lockdown will get over. So it's your attitude that needs to change for the child to change his or her language of communication.
Right. We have a question from Mrs. Preeti Badranavar. It seems she has typed this question second time because like she was waiting for her question to be read aloud. So she says, can we force kids sometimes to wake them early or to make them disciplined or to make them have good habits? So is it okay to force few things to make them disciplined?
Force by spanking, definitely no. But otherwise, yes, you need to be a little assertive at times for the routines to set in. I'll just give you my daughter's example. She otherwise is an early waker. She gets up at 6 o'clock in the morning and goes to school every single day. But since the lockdown has started, the time that she gets up is 9:30. And the moment she gets up, the first thing that she does is goes, sits in front of the television and watches Ramayana. I appreciate the fact that she's watching that mythological story because there's so much to learn in that. But what I'm not appreciating is she getting up late and then immediately sitting in front of the television. This happened for 10 days straight. Nothing was told to her. But after 10 days, when you realize it's becoming a part of her personality, is when you need to become assertive and tell her, this is not acceptable. Everybody in the house is getting up early, getting ready, taking a bath, eating breakfast, and then only you can watch your Ramayana. And especially with preschoolers, you can actually force these things. You cannot do it with a teenager, but for preschoolers, luckily you can. So obviously give them that reward, whatever the child is looking for, because preschoolers at times work with extrinsic motivation, actually most of the times. So you can tell the child that finish all this and you'll get what you were looking for. So it is okay to force as in be assertive in your communication.
So we have the next question coming from Mrs. Gulzar. She says, how can we deal with the child with regards to anxiety and depression in current lockdown? They have this question that is something bad going to happen? So how do we revert to that?
Okay, like I told you, anxiety, depression, everything is because of the way the adults in the house are responding. Children are born fearless. Children are born without anxiety. The adjective childlike comes because of the thing that children are innocent and they don't have a concept of being unhappy. It is something that they learn from the adults around them. So what you need to do is obviously try and find opportunities to connect with the child actively and passively both. Passively could be just, from nowhere, go hug the child, put a pat on the child, give a pat to a child, and tell the child, I'm there, don't worry, everything is fine. I'm enjoying it. Are you? Or you can have an active conversation with the child, telling that, you know what, once this happens, we're going to do this, but for now, we're going to learn this. Find a purpose for the child. If you start the day without a routine, they get up whenever they want to, you don't know what you're going to do for the day. If that's how your routine and day looks like, there are higher chances the child uh, would go on similar lines. And children love routines, to be very honest. They love routines. So set a routine for them, give them a purpose that, you know what, next 2 days we are going to do this. We together are a team and we are going to make sure that this happens. When they know that you are with them in achieving something, there are higher chances that they will end up doing it. So depression, anxiety doesn't come to children. In fact, they are born without it.
So we have a lot of questions still coming in, but considering the time constraints, we'll just take up one or two last one of them. We have Shilpa Jain asking, how much should be the minimum and maximum time we should give for any activity, considering the household work and the office work? And we have another question by Dheeraj Chari, which could go together, which is how to keep the child focused and motivated for studies during the lockdown.
Okay. So when it comes to your time, to every parent, to each his own, to be very honest. But on an average, what I can say is exercise half hour. Having meaningful conversation can happen for 10 to 15 minutes in a day. That's good enough. I'm talking about the minimum things that you can do in a day. Uh, when you're exercising, involve the child also. So naturally, you're spending time with the child. Half hour can be in the family activity, and half hour can be pursuing a new hobby or reinventing yourself, which amounts to 1.5 hours to 2 hours. That's good enough.
Right. We have one more question, which I believe is going to be really important for all of us. We have Smita Jadhav, who says, what precautions should be taken care in advance once we are starting the school again?
Okay. Uh, it is very difficult to tell the children that there is something called COVID-19 or a virus which exists because they cannot see it. Children believe whenever they see something because they have just understood the concept of object permanence, that there's something which I can see, which is tangible. It is very difficult for them to comprehend what they cannot see, especially preschoolers. So all you need to tell them is through stories or through songs that you need to wash your hands very regularly. Teaching them that 20 seconds under the wash basin, singing happy birthday song, asking them not to touch anything, asking them not to touch their hands. They're preschoolers, eventually they end up touching. So more than them, we need to take precautions for them, keeping a sanitizer in their bag, and constantly reminding them about these things probably will help us cope with the situation.
Thank you so much for that answer, ma'am. We still have about 3 or 4 questions. If you're okay about extending, can we have a few more?
Yeah, we can. It's
Okay.
5:50, so we can.
Sure. Okay. So the question is, there is a lot of time we get a no from my child's side. For whatever thing I expect her to do, it's a no. How should I overcome this situation? This question is coming from Mansi Rajurkar.
Okay. So again, I'm repeating the same thing. No comes because somebody in the house is saying no to the child when the child ends up demanding for something. So the moment the child says, can I watch television? No. Can I play with this? No. if you end up giving such answers to children, or somebody in the family is doing that, the child has learned that, you know, the easiest way to respond back or not to do a certain thing is by saying no. At times, when the child demands something from you, you need to reason out with the child. You need to tell them the why of we not doing a particular thing. So when the child says no, don't shout on the child. You can just ask the child, why do you think we should not do this? What do you think about the situation? And for a child who's 4 and 5 years of age, they can reason out. So they'll end up telling, Mala nahi avdat. Like, I don't like it. I don't want to do it. Oh, why don't you like it? Why don't you want to do it? Make them think about why they're saying no. Because this no should not be a casual answer. They should know why they are saying a no. And giving them alternative options is always wonderful. Okay, you don't want to do this. Why don't we can do this or we can do that? So you're giving them choices within a given set of choices. That probably can work. So next time your child says no, ask them why they are saying no and then give them choices. That would probably work.
The next question comes from Mrs. Veena Gawand. She says, my kid is 2.5. I literally have to force him to sleep every single time. And he never sleeps unless we tell him, if you don't sleep, a ghost or police will take you in the dark and beat you up. She says, I know it's wrong, but no matter how many stories I read or rhymes or books I read, he just wants to play around.
Okay. I would really request you not to use ghost, not to use anybody to scare the child, because whatever the child learns during early years stays and becomes part of child's personality. Children, like I told you, are born fearless. You are imbibing those fears and anxieties in them. And if you do that, you are doing a damage for the entire life. So in fact, you know, I'm afraid of dogs, and I was afraid of swimming because of one incident that happened in my childhood. And I'm afraid of dogs just because my friends were afraid of dogs. Okay. Till date, I'm afraid of that because those are the things which are imbibed in your childhood. The best way is not to scare the child, but to reason out with the child. The other reason why your child might not be sleeping is because your child might be physically very active and he's not getting enough opportunities to move around physically or get exhausted with that physical energy. So what you need to do is make the child run around, help the child use skipping ropes, keep him physically active, let him get tired, let his energy drain out for him to sleep. Plus, the other thing that you can do is ensure that his meal times are equally laid out. So he's having food after every 2-3 hours, or you're planning their food timings appropriately. Don't allow him to sleep in the afternoon. I'm so sure you must be doing that. But the other thing that you can do is just ensure that he is physically exerted. So let him play. Play, play, play.
Right. We have a question from Mrs. Abhiruchi Athavle. She says, my child has become a bit more cranky and she's about 3 years. Can you suggest some methods to calm her?
Okay. Children get cranky, so it's very normal. Preschoolers throw tantrums, preschoolers get cranky. So it's nothing to worry about. All you can do is keep doing some activity or the other with the child, involve them. Also give them a lot of time to be by themselves. A lot of self-play will help. You need not be around the child, hover around the child all the time. Let the child just be. So even if the child is cranky, just don't pay attention on certain days, because sometimes the crankiness or the tantrums is to gain attention. Actually, most of the times. So the moment the child wants attention, the child will do something by which the child will get attention, good or bad. So crankiness, throwing tantrums are ways to get your attention. So at times, just let the child be. That's completely fine.
Right. We have another question which says, how do you remove the fear in the child which we ourselves have created?
Okay. What has been done has been done. You cannot undo it, but you can just stop talking about it and create new neuro-linguistic associations. We call them NLAs. So whatever has been built or the wiring has been done, but they can be overshadowed by new associations which are formed. So just stop talking about whatever you have been so far, and try building new positive affirmations and positive neuro-linguistic associations so that these do not come ahead. That is all you can do. But what has been done has been done. You cannot undo it.
Right. We have two questions that can be merged together again. We have Dr. Rishwa, which says, when I call Anvi, if she's sitting in another room, most of the time she doesn't respond to me, and I don't understand why she behaves like this. And we have another question from Mr. Shantaram Bhandari, who says, my baby is just 14 months old, but he shows aggression, and how do I respond to him?
Okay. Uh, for Anvi, if she's sitting in one room and not responding, probably she's engaged in something which is more interesting than what you are going to ask her to do. So that's why the best way out is not to respond and continue doing what she's doing. For her to pay attention to you, you need to make yourself very interesting. And she needs to know that if my parents are calling me, I know there is something very important. If you call her for petty things, she knows he must be calling me for lifting up a toy, or he must be calling me for lunch or dinner, and I don't want to have that lunch and dinner right now because I'm doing something really interesting. So that's probably they don't respond back. But what you can do is actually walk up to the child, make an eye contact, and tell the child, Anvi, I was calling you because I wanted this thing to be done. Can we do it together? Or at times you can say, I want this to be done, please. Sometimes it's eye contact helps a lot. So instead of calling her from the other room, it would be great if you can walk down to her and then talk to her. That would suffice, is what I feel. And for the 14-month-old, it's too early to judge that the child is being violent or aggressive because the child is just 14 months and the child is not even learned to speak. So the only way the child is going to communicate to you is through hand gestures and through aggression. So it's completely fine. Let the child be.
Right. We have two more questions left. One question is from an anonymous attendee. How do make child focused on a single activity?
Like I told you, it's very important that we reduce the quantity of thoughts and improve the quality of their thoughts for them to focus on something. Deep breathing, pursuing a hobby, chanting Om will channelize their energy on few thoughts rather than many thoughts. So when the child is breathing, the entire energy focus is on breathing. So that is one way of improving their focus and concentration. And for preschoolers, what you can do is heighten one of their senses. The children learn through their 5 senses: seeing, touching, smelling, hearing, tasting. You can heighten one of the sense to improve their concentration. So maybe you can give them a sensorial activity where they're touching something, or you can give them a sensory bottle where they're looking at the sensory bottle, things moving inside the sensory bottle, or you can give them something nice to smell. Heighten one of the senses to improve their focus and concentration. That probably will work because when one of the senses is heightened, the child is more alert and into that situation. Any whichever ways, the concentration span of the child is equivalent to age. So for a 1-year-old, the concentration span is going to be 1 minute. For a 2-year-old, it's going to be 2 minutes. For a 3-year-old, it's going to be 3 minutes. You cannot expect a 3-year-old to have a concentration span of 15 minutes. That's practically not possible. So if a 3-year-old is giving you a concentration span of 3 minutes, wonderful. The child is on the right track. You need not worry.
So we have the last question coming up from Mrs. Neha Singh. My daughter is 3.5 years old. She always has her hand in her mouth. I tell her everything not to do that, but she is not understanding. Please suggest me something.
If it's been happening, actually this is something which is related to preschooler habits and behaviors. We really need to introspect her behavior in order to comment. If she's doing it from childhood, there are certain ways by which we can ensure that this doesn't happen. But if just out of nowhere that she's doing it now, then you can ignore and give her something more interesting and attractive. We really need to know why she's doing it and since when she's doing it, and we need to understand her history in order to comment on this. Uh, Probably you can get in touch on a personal front and we will help you address this.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We have had pouring questions from everywhere, and you have answered each one of them with so much of patience and so much of interest, and that willingness to help everybody. Would you want to give us an end note before we end the session, like a few words to just conclude everything that we have spoken about?
Uh, I really want each and every parent to evolve as a lockdown champion. And this starts from us. And this starts from accepting the change. And it starts from feeding our mind with positive thoughts and lifting up the spirits of everybody around us. So the change starts from us, and let us be the change makers and the ones who can quickly adapt to this change. We are in a tunnel, like I told you, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. Let's wait for the light, but till then, let us find the vision and the focus inside the tunnel. Let's all do it together, because we are in it together and we will sail through. This shall too pass. So, thank you so much.
Sneha ma'am, it was great to have you be here and highlight the entire situation of the lockdown in a way where we don't actually look at, oh my God, what to do now? But we look at it as, oh wow, there is so much to do now. So thank you so much for bringing that change for all our parents. I'm sure parents have taken back a lot of things for themselves. Before we end the session, we would like to inform and share with all of you. We have many more webinars coming up. Sneha ma'am, you have a lot of panelists who are your friends who are going to come up and highlight on a lot of things like we just spoke about. Would you want to suggest anything about parents being there, or would you want to kind of highlight on who are coming and what can the parents do to be a part of these sessions?
So we have lot of webinars coming, like I told you, on nutrition, on physical fitness, on storytelling, on mental peace, on rebooting the parenting. So all the questions that you've addressed can be asked again in the coming webinars. And we also have our online classes starting. So you can find a way of engaging children in these online classes also. Like you can see on the screen, we have these online classes, and we have a series of webinars also coming up. So definitely be part of it. They will be, in fact, very resourceful for all of you.
Thank you so much, Sneha ma'am, for conducting